Hello everyone, Loremaster Sotek here, and buckle up. It's finally here. The patch notes for patch 3.0, and they are, they're a doozy. There's a lot. So we're going to do our best to just get through it all as fast as we can. So without further ado, let's dive on in. So, highlights. Obviously, you get the new Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs. Very cool. Then, you get the Mirrors of Madness, which gives you new Tzeentch gear for the Demon Prince character. Very cool. The Empire and Kislev got Ulrika Magdova for free. Awesome. Mix things up in your campaigns with a randomization feature. Roll the dice on which race and legendary lord you're going to begin a new adventure with. That's very cool and great for people that... we actually have a bot that does that on our Discord, so I think people will appreciate that being in-game. Aim true with new line of sight adjustments. Very nice. New tooltip stuff, cool, and sweep balance changes to Bretonia, Dark Elves, Grand Cathay, Greenskins, and more. Alright, let's dive in. The release spotlight. Today's the day! The Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs campaign pack introduces the brutal race of the Chaos Dwarfs. None of this is new information if you've been kind of following everything going on. So, yeah, looks good. Chaos Dwarfs, very hard recommend from me. I will be doing a video where I kind of talk more specifically about my thoughts. But it's pretty fucking great. I'm gonna be frank there. Moving on, Mirrors of Madness, free LC. So you can take on the role of a Demon Prince of Tzeentch for the Trials of Fate, which are a very fun set of challenges that some of them can be reasonably difficult. They start easy and they seem to kind of get more difficult the further you go down the list. But there's a lot of really fun little fights to do, and you get a big bad boss fight against Kairos Fate Weaver at the end. And then, of course, there's the Infinite Portal for people who like making their PCs spontaneously combust. Ulrika Magdova, honestly, she is amazing. She's an incredible piece of free content. I'm very excited to have her in the game and really hope this is the first of many new free LC heroes we'll have added to the game. Race randomization. So you can see it's up here. There's a little button that looks like a computer screen, and it will give you a random lord. So you're able to just select that, and it'll just give you it'll give you all your random goodies. That way you can just immediately jump into a campaign. Stability and performance, fixed an issue that caused modded or custom characters to crash, fixed sock lock issues when declaring war on player factions, fix some FPS drop issues, potential crashes, fixed an end-of-turn crash when Gotrek dies, fixed a crash with sieges, and hell game data. General updates. You can now preview landmark buildings you'll get access to in settlement by hovering over it. Amazing quality of life thing. That is so good and great for people like me who really like to find all of the landmark buildings, because no longer do you have to conquer the entire world to figure out what they are. You can just mouse over it and take a look at them and then go conquer them. But yeah, I think that is awesome. Introduce a new file pack limit that increases the number of mods that can be hypothetically run simultaneously. Very cool for big modders. New panel allows you to search for certain items on the campaign map, which I will need to do a video kind of showcasing this. But this is great because it allows you to look for all sorts of specific stuff, which is super duper nice. It is a fantastic new search feature that's kind of up in like the top left of the game screen. Multiple buildings that were incorrectly marked as destructible have been updated game-wide. Cool. Updated campaign map selection for Immortal Empire and Immortal Empire, or Realm of Chaos and Immortal Empire campaigns to ensure some stuff there. Made the effect of a Stranger Comes event stronger for all the, or increased the effect rather for all the Order factions. I believe that's the one that is based around like an Albion Dark Emissary coming to you and offering money in exchange for corruption. New regions and provinces have made their way into Realm of Chaos and Immortal Empires. Not only that, but the Earth's plates have shifted, causing some to find a new home elsewhere. Explore the lands and discover new settlements, regions, and conquer them. Alongside additions and relocations, several regions have their borders adjusted, certain settlements within those regions have been moved around, and roads have been tweaked where necessary. And a new sea lane has been added between the River Ruin and the Frozen Sea. Delightful. Rules and systems. Missions that require the taking of specific regions now complete instantly rather than on a start your turn. Good. Fixed various land battle maps to prevent reinforcements arriving where they can't then move. Good. Fixed an issue where sailing into two sea encounters would cause the second to break. Good. Updated choke point areas to properly load into ambush battles. Good. Ally recruitment now takes into account the military force bonus values. Very nice. All right, battle AI. In walled settlements, the AI will no longer double back on an approaching entry point and obstruct artillery units and attempt to reform themselves. That's definitely good. Update how attacking AI units are distributed in walled settlement battles to better take advantage of units capable of assaulting gates. Fix an issue in siege battles where AI artillery units continue to move forward when they should remain stationary to fire. Artillery units targeting breaches will now more reliably reposition they cannot successfully fire. AI units will be less likely to blob and try and remain coordinated. Fix cases where AI's units would think its units were at max health when they weren't. Fix an issue where groups of units would stop to brace instead of charging. Fix an issue in settlement battles where mounted Lord AI would become indecisive and just move back and forth. Settlement battle improvements have been made to AI units priority analysis of capture points. Fix an issue in settlements where defending AI unit becomes idle after morale break and flees instead of re-engaging with player units. Units would remain hidden from the player, leading to the player losing the battle due to time running out. Well, that definitely sucks. I never saw that personally, but that sounds terrible. Fix an issue where AI would assign multiple battering rams to the same gate assault group, leading to additional battering rams being abandoned. Wall breaching AI unit groups no longer share wall breach targets and other nearby target groups. This resolves an issue where units were not targeting closest available wall pieces. Updated outflank AI to handle flying units better. In settlement battles where an attacking AI is controlled, it will be more consistently deployed a nearby reinforcement's arrival location and wait for reinforcements before proceeding. Improved logic involved in determining how many breaches the AI will attempt to create before waiting units begin to enter settlements. This will reduce the likelihood of AI units remaining idle. Good. Fix an issue where AI assaulting the settlement gate would abandon the assault, leaving units with no means of entering the settlement. Okay, cool. Dev note: while it's true the Skaven are known for caring about the lives of their subordinates, war losses are an important part of the peace evaluation calculation. It was detrimental for them to ignore them. Skaven leaders, of course, do care about losing battles, as such a thing is clearly evidence of plots against them. That's interesting. I wonder what it's trying to... I'm assuming that has to do with the campaign AI stuff here. Adjusted the strategic threat calculations for Immortal Empires. Direct actions against the faction are now much more important in that calculation. The importance of distance scaling has been increased, improving the way AI will select the most relevant threats. So basically, they're saying that the AI now cares a lot more for if you're directly acting against them specifically than if you're doing something else, like affecting allies of theirs, for instance, or enemies of theirs. They care more about your personal interactions with them. Also, distance is bigger, so they're going to be less likely to maintain wars against someone who's halfway across the planet. Further tweaks have been made to AI recruitment priorities to fire higher value targets. They will place more weight on building recruitment building if they don't have any. Fixed various cases of AI trying to enter stances which were invalid, leading to it trying to perform moves it could not. Fix the AI control option for allied armies not showing when being attacked by an enemy. Fix cases the AI trying to apply commandments to provinces it didn't own. Fix a bug which meant the AI became less, as opposed to more, likely to generate a peace steal the further away the target was. Oh, well, that's definitely good. Wow. Okay, so it was doing the exact opposite. So good, that's fixed. All factions now care about their strategic situation with generating a war declaration. Improved AI performance in the first turn of the game. Minor AI factions should be more accepting of vassalization. That's really good to read. Fix some cases where AI attempted to calculate the strength of force resulting in incorrect behavior. Reducing the distance required for maximum distance modifiers to be applied. War declaration on a faction of the same subculture is now less likely for High Elf, Empire, and Lizardman major factions. Okay, so that's really interesting. So the Lizardmen are less likely to declare war on other major Lizardman factions. Same for High Elves and Empire. So they're more likely to be nicer to each other. All factions now consider war losses when evaluating a peace deal. Previously, the Skaven, Majors, Dwarfs, and Tomb Kings did not. That's really interesting. Okay, so that's what the Skaven note was about earlier. And that makes sense. Like, obviously, if they're taking tons and tons of casualties, they need to take that into consideration of whether or not they want to continue a war for the moment. Let's see. Line of sight has been a sticking point in Warhammer 3's overall battle responsiveness, and we're making some adjustments to Update 3.0. As you'll see below, many of the issues came from various objects and props in the environment, which would sometimes lead units to attempting to walk through a destructible object rather than shoot over it. We're continuing to iterate this work. Please keep the feedback coming. Okay? We've updated and corrected the logic on various prop buildings to work better with line of sight issues across the battle maps game-wide, including but not limited to lamp stands on Dark Elf battle maps, Bretonnia and Grand Cathay market stalls, tents, tables, and other destructible assets, Ogre Kingdom environmental objects, several constructible towers on the Shenyang map, tiny destructible pieces of terrain game-wide that were especially detrimental to gunpowder units, and wall collision on Dwarfen maps. Further tweaks: updated the building collisions of platform barricades to allow a greater line of sight and firing for docked missile units. Updated and corrected the logic on various buildings to prevent artillery from targeting them across battle maps game-wide. Okay, interesting. So hopefully that will help on a lot of maps, especially those like more siege-type maps, but we'll have to see. General, fix some general inconsistencies with units having or not having siege attacker. Fix the Lord of the Wilds spell Mantle of Gorok not being able to be overcasted. With the Chaos Dwarfs here, we're adamant about improving quality of life as some other factions have been struggling from the outset. Therefore, some adjustments have been made to their starting positions or the strengths of nearby settlements to allow them to take a settlement on their first turn, bringing them in line with the other factions of Immortal Empires. This is for Zhao Ming, Grease's Goldtooth, Tehinuin, Krokgar, Tarux, Snitch, Helman Gorst, and the Fey Enchantress. So basically they got some little buffs here and there or some slight adjustments to their start positions, etc. to help them be a little more aggressive on the first turn and be able to get off the ground quicker. Spells. Spells and non-spell skills have received adjustment to their miscast chance modifiers, making it a single direct sum as opposed to the previous system, which calculated direct percentage alongside a separate percentage modifier. Interesting. We also see there's been quite a few changes in the Winds of Magic. So we see Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance is now significantly cheaper in both forms. Vengeist Revenge is more expensive in both forms. Let's see. Kraken's Pull is more expensive. Plague is more expensive. And also, okay, it's slightly less big at the end, but it gets larger faster. Flamestorm, we've seen a lot of, is significantly better. Gem of Sunfire has a much larger explosion force, but is slower moving. Toothcracker is slightly cheaper. Deathfrost is a fair bit cheaper. Curse of the Leper is cheaper. Rancid Visitations is cheaper. Talons of Night is considerably more expensive. Doom and Darkness is cheaper. Dwellers Below is considerably more expensive. Pit of Shades is more expensive. Final Transmutation is cheaper. Doom and Darkness, I feel like we already talked about Doom and Darkness. Yeah, we did. Cheaper. Curse of the Midnight Wind is cheaper. So it seems like a lot of the spells that aren't like big explosions or nukes are getting notably reduced in cost. Meanwhile, all of the like really reliable damage spells are more expensive. Wind Blast is notably cheaper. Light of Battle is cheaper. Gorkle Fix is cheaper. Night Shroud's a lot cheaper. Final Transmutation is a little cheaper. Invocation of the Heck is cheaper. And Raise Dead is cheaper. Ability. Master of the Dead is now an intensity-based ability. Oh, that's very interesting. Intensity of the regeneration effect increases based on the number of entities that are killed within a 35-meter radius of a character with Master of the Dead. Okay, so that's a really interesting alteration. So Master of the Dead is the Necromancer exclusive ability where as long as they're standing near enough by, they can give healing to nearby undead units. So I think that that's actually a really interesting change. That makes it where you want to keep your necromancers relatively close, so that they can continue to be bigger or give better regen. Mistwalker's Barrage now has armor piercing, and it's magical, and it also has significantly higher mass. Very cool. Shadow Shroud lasts for longer and gives a much higher ward save. Lord of Torment now gives better mana regeneration, but less healing, which is Bellacor's ability. Shadow Shroud is, oh god, my brain. Elithanar, I think. Mistwalker's Barrage, I think that's, oh gosh, I want to say that's a special ability for Eltharion the Grim. See, the Dark Master is now cheaper for Be'lakor. Whispers of the Darkness does less leadership damage than it used to. Master of the Sacred Places, which is the Quaddle ability that gives stealth, is now a 55-meter radius instead of a 35-meter radius. I think that's a really good change. The Soul Hunter's ward save on the Hellstriders of Slaanesh now caps at 10% instead of 22%. Reliquary Binding now heals half as quickly, but also imbues magical attacks to friendly units. The Reliquary Binding, I believe, is the Mortis Engine power. So it heals significantly less per second, but it gives you magic damage. So, okay, that's pretty decent. Same thing for the Unholy Lodestone, where it heals half as effectively now, but it also gives bonus leadership. So just making the Healy Death Stars of the vampire counts a little less efficient. Well, actually, notably less efficient, but they give some bonus abilities to try and make up for it. And then Blade of Shadow, which is Be'lakor's super sword, now gives 50% base damage instead of 0, but it's had its armor piercing damage buff reduced in half and the melee attack cut in half as well. All right, Beastmen. Let's get into like some of the more like, all right, I can actually visualize a lot of this easy. Dev note, there's not too many changes for the Beastmen this time around, although they should benefit quite nicely from the upgrades to articulated vehicles that have been made. We've given Bestigors and I've buffed 2 as they were underperforming across the board. This is really funny to me reading this because there's actually a whole thing going on in Age of Sigmar right now where Bestigors have become absolute shit. They're like super bad now, the most recent change, and there's been a lot of like grumbling about it, so it's I don't know, it's just funny to me. This should improve their combat potential as elite infantry. General updates. Fixed cases where Beastman unit capacity would be increased twice from the same effect. That's good. You know, make sure it's not overdone. Fix the Beastman follower managed thrall not being equipable by the Wargore. Fix an issue where the capital border image was missing on Beastman settlements. Fix Tarok's and Oxyotto's quest battles, the Heart of the Dark not playing the intro cutscene. Fixed an issue where the Beastman Herdstone upgrades were not applying. Now when erecting a Herdstone, it will be created at the correct level based on the do you still, that's interesting. I didn't even know you still really got the Heart of the Dark quest battles. My brain is fuzzy. Anyway, fixed issue where Beastman Hearthstone upgrades were not applying. Well, that's really good. That's definitely something that needed to be fixed. Fix the Ruinous Seances, Hearthstone building not providing additional dread. Fix Malagor's Nightmarish Cabal skill, not reducing Bray Shaman hero costs. Clarified the effect given by the unique Hearthstone building in Altdorf, and now provides melee attack when fighting all human races rather than just the Empire and Bretonnia. That's really good. That's definitely super good. I still would really like for us to get more unique Hearthstones. I don't think they've added new ones yet for a lot of the new major Warhammer 3 locations, but fix the Bray Shaman unit card on the map. So Bestigor now have 4 more leadership and 6 more melee defense. Okay, so they are going to be much, much better at not taking damage in combat. The Cygor got 8 more melee defense. Korok's Man Rippers got a little bit more base damage in addition to the leadership and wow, 7 more melee attack. Very, very nice. Razorgore Chariots and Mounts now have 2,000 mass instead of 1,400, so they're a lot heavier. Tuskor Chariots now have better splash attack knockback force, so they're better at knocking people over with their attacks. I have Morslib has higher 9 higher melee defense, and Minotaurs with great weapons had their bonus versus large reduced a little bit. Skills. Morgar's Herald of Corruption skill was not applying corruption to adjacent provinces correctly, so good, that's fixed, so he's properly scary. Fix an issue where Crowfather was applying twice. Okay, good. Fix Malagor Something Wicked This Way Comes. Skill reducing enemy leadership as the skill level increases. Okay. And fixed updated Beastman skills and challenges to include buffs for Pharaoh Manticores. Oh, very nice. Okay, so their Manticores get buffed now too. Fixed number of Beastman technologies, such as Roaming Torment, Bestial Resistance, and Vitriolic Temperament, which was not applying the stated effects to the stated units. And fixed the Beastman Challenge technology World Bane, not giving weapon strength when fighting against human races. Well, at least all human races. Okay, good. So it sounds like, apart from a couple of, like, little things, unit-wise, they fixed a lot of the, like, versus human buffs to be properly applied. Bretonnia. Bretonia's had a rough time lately, so to help a little, their late-game cavalry has been given a few sturdy buffs. In the future, we hope to bring Bretonia's battle capabilities up a notch to meet some of the newer factions, but in the interest of not over-egging that particular pudding, we'll be keeping a close eye on how they progress in the present after this update. Campaign. There are now additional diplomatic penalties between Cologne and Marienburg. Okay, so adding some more spice between some of the human races. Units. We do see cost reductions for battle pilgrims in all forms, which is nice. Grail Knights have a little bit more melee defense and a hefty bit of additional bonus versus large. Grail Guardians now have significantly better damage stats with 6 more melee attack, 12 more charge bonus, and 7 more AP. That is not bad. Hippogriffs are now considerably heavier. Pegasus Knights now have more health per entity, more melee attack, more melee defense, significantly more charge, much faster walking, much faster running, and even faster charging. So just buffs all around for big old Pegasus Knights. That's really cool. Royal Hippogriff Knights now have 2,000 mass instead of 1,500. Royal Pegasus Knights, same thing as regular Pegasus Knights. They've got just all sorts of buffs. Every single stat mentioned here is going up. Hit points are up, melee defense, charge bonus, walk speed, run speed, charge speed, and entity mass. Royal Pegasus Mounts, also same buffs there. The Holy Wardens of La Macental got the cost reductions. Unicorn mounts. Unicorn mounts were using incorrect entity settings. This has now been corrected. So they have a slightly slower walk speed, much faster run speed, slightly less acceleration and deceleration, but better charge and slightly higher mass. And should hopefully be behaving a bit better. The chivalry bonus for the fighting the Warriors of Chaos with the Ruinous Powers Decree technology now applies correctly. Originally, the bonus for fighting the Warriors of Chaos was mistakenly coming from the Green Tide. Huh, that's interesting. Support religious errantry no longer gives Rapunzel's diplomacy with herself, but probably good. Increased turn duration required for Bordello Confederation tech. All right, fair enough. Because that one is a little bit, I guess, was a little faster to blitz. Demons of Chaos. Well, it looks like Demons of Chaos haven't received that many changes at first glance. They do benefit from changes to all the mono god rosters. Our changes here mostly center around Be'lakor, who has received a food. Okay. So in the patch notes, they put Be'lakor in the Demons of Chaos section, but in campaign, they force me to use him in the Warriors of Chaos. I call bullshit. Make him Warriors of Chaos, you absolute cowards. Make him God, I hate so much that he's in the Warriors of Chaos roster. I hate it. Fix him. Make him a Demons of Chaos character. Anyway. Updated various items on the Demon Prince to provide greater difference in weapon effects and added relevant lore to passive abilities. Ooh, I like lore. Fixed visual quality of the Demon Princes of Slaanesh and Khorne shields. Added filters to the Demon Prince gear that allows you to search, sort, and filter by alignment all parts available to the Demon Prince. Okay, that's super nice. So when you have tons of body parts, you can actually like search for what you want or at least narrow it down, which will be very helpful. Campaign, fix the Demon Prince's Reverence building chains not offering extra income reward when growth per turn was higher than 200 and while dedicated to Nurgle as described by text. Good. The multiplayer cost, we see there's been a lot of adjustments. Looks for the most part, all the Demon Princes are about 200 cheaper, though Be'lakor is now more expensive pretty much universally. He also has less hit points, but yeah, he's more expensive in every way. Yeah. Man, God, please put Be'lakor in the freaking Demons of Chaos. Just do it. Just do it. We don't need him in the Warriors of Chaos. He doesn't add anything to the Warriors of Chaos. He would be so much cooler for demons. Give him demon characters. Give him Herald Lords. Give him the demon heroes. He doesn't need Chaos Lords. He doesn't need Exalted Heroes and all that shit. Just make him demons. Just make him freaking... Okay, anyway. Cool. Dark Elves. Dark Elves are in a pretty good place right now battle-wise, but they've been indirectly hit thanks to a bug fix where riders on their war machines are firing more projectiles than intended. This issue was skewing the performance of Scourge Runner Chariots and Bloodrat Cauldrons quite significantly. We've also buffed Shades, which should help to diversify the weapon variants a little bit more and reduce their recruitment crime campaign. Thank God. Shades requiring 2 turns to recruit was absolute horseshit. That was so dumb. Always hated that. Really glad that's no longer the case. Fixed an issue with FLC banners not displaying correctly in some situations. Skirmish versus AI. Minor faction of Clark Heron will now start with their faction leader on the map as intended. Fixed issues with defensive towers on the Har Cauldra map, and Haggrave's skin assets have been updated. Cool. Fixed issue where Black Arcs were only displacing water on one side. Huh, okay. When disbanded, Dark Elf Lords will no longer gain another name of power. Oh, bummer. Black Arcs can now be recruited via allied recruitment. Whoa, hold up. Wait, we can recruit a Black Arc through allied recruitment? How does that work? Ooh, okay, I'm gonna have to mess up. I feel like what they mean by this is that Black Arcs now have access to the allied recruitment system. Not that you as an ally can recruit allied units, because otherwise that would not make any damn sense. Though I do love the idea of butting up with Dark Elves and getting them giving me a Black Arc. Rework quest battle intro for Malice, Darkblaze, Rise of Darkness, and Warp Throne of Cain battles. Units. Black Arc Corsairs have reduced armor piercing. Bleak Swords have 10 more armor. That's nice. But less damage to go with it, so they're a bit tankier at the cost of damage. Crone Hellebron on a Manticore has 80 armor now instead of 45. That's a big buff. Cold One Chariots and Cold One Chariot mounts have had all of their stats adjusted. Faster walk speed, slightly lower charge speed, much higher mass, faster walk speed, lower acceleration, and charge speed standardized. Dark Pegasus mounts and Raven Heralds now have a higher walk speed, higher run speed, higher charge speed, and slightly lesser mass. But kind of faster all around, which is nice. High Beast Master on Scourge Run Chariot, the entity mass has now been fixed so that it's all consistent. Lokier Fellheart on Maelstrom has a bit less melee attack, but he does have more damage and armor-piercing damage, and got a slight cost reduction in multiplayer. Malekith on Seraphon, same thing. Slightly less melee attack, but more damage, but he got more expensive. Marathi on Sulafet got the same change we talked about earlier with the other Pegasi. The Master is more expensive in multiplayer now. Rakarth on Brachus does more damage, but costs more money. Ravagers of Rakarth got the mass changes. Shades with dual weapons and great swords now only cost 1 turn to recruit. Thank you. Also, dual weapons have higher melee attack, higher melee defense, and are cheaper to recruit in multiplayer. Same thing for the great weapons in that they have higher melee defense, higher bonus versus infantry, and are cheaper in multiplayer. Very nice. Update the source input for Murderous Prowess to match the initial implementation. It now takes deaths from both alliances as currency. Cool. Dwarfs! Now that the Great Shame has finally reared its fiery bovine head, the dwarves have upgraded the shields for their melee lords, heroes, and infantry, along with having their recruitment costs tweaked. So that's actually a huge buff for dwarfs across the map. That they have silver shields now instead of bronze shields. They are properly solidly armored Dawi. Fixed an issue in the model variation used by dwarf lords. Fixed pathfinding with dwarf minor settlements. Fixed a gap in terrain in Kadak Asgaraz. Fixed Thorgrim Grudgebearer becoming a wide elector account. That goes in the book! Thoric Ironbrow now has his mission chain for confederating Karak Azul again. Good. Okay. So now he's more consistent with having the stuff he had back in Warhammer 2. Removing an agent from military forces now removes the correct active agent actions. Okay, fix the intro cutscene for the Lost Vault quest battle. Flame cannons are cheaper. Miners with blasting charges now deal less damage. Rune Lord on the Anvil of Doom is cheaper. The Runesmith is a bit cheaper. All the things in the dwarf roster with shields now have silver shields, so 55% missile block chance, which is great. Thorg Ironbrow on the Anvil of Doom is more expensive. The Dwarf Hero Thanks Guild Ironbeard now has correct icon. Cool. Cathay are generally doing pretty good at the moment, but there were some cost corrections needed for their lords in multiplayer. Jade Warriors have also received some tweaks to bring them in line with comparable units. Let's see. So the Rice Terraces, the Turtle Field, will now deal less fall damage to chariots. That's good. They were blowing them up terrifyingly. Added Gotrek and Felix to Grand Cathay and skirmish battles. Neat. Miao Ying can now attack the nearest settlement after completing the first turn battle on turn 1 of the Realms of Chaos. Okay, that's good. That just kind of like helps with the start of her campaign. Fixed a bug which would cause Wei Jin to lack 10 settlement slots if you recaptured it. Okay, well that's good because that is an important place. It should have 10 slot settlements. Units. Astromancer on the Wuxing War Compass now has considerably more mass. The Dragon-Blooded Shukagen Lord, the Lore of Yang, is more expensive in all variants. We also see that the Jade Longma, just like the Pegasus, has been adjusted to be kind of consistent with the Pegasus. The Yen Lord is also more expensive and has had that adjusted. The Fire Rain Rocket Battery has more health, as does the Grand Cannon. Jade Warrior crossbows with shields are cheaper. Jade Warriors have a little less melee defense. Halberds have less melee attack, but more melee defense. Okay. Miao Ying is considerably cheaper in her various forms in multiplayer, which is solid. Wuxing War Compass, we are talked about, is heavier, and Zhao Ming is also a fair bit cheaper. Very cool. The blue line skill on the Convoy Masters that increase sale value of cargo will now function as intended. I will say, Grand Cathay, overall, looking pretty good. I do very much hope that Cathay gets a pretty serious relook at their convoys here sooner rather than later, because their convoys are woefully outdated compared to the Chaos Dwarf ones, in that The Cathay ones, the whole thing where they only give you like a hero as you're going through, and you only get like this, you know, you get a piece of gear, and their items are for the most part pretty good, but yeah, getting units from the factions you're trading with is so much better than getting the heroes, because you just can't do anything with the heroes. You're not able to do anything with the heroes. You can't level up their skill trees. You can't equip items to them. You can't earn traits with them. They're just kind of there. And it's not even like they have a bunch of cool randomized skills or like a filled out skill tree. They're really just kind of very basic bitch, which sucks. I would much rather be getting like badass units than kind of like stuff which we're getting from currently. Also, I hope they open up sea routes for Grand Cathay, because the Chaos Dwarfs are able to actually send out like naval groups to Naggaroth. I think it would be totally fine for Grand Cathay to be able to send out cargo that goes all the way to Ulthuan. I think that would be more than fair. Anyway, moving on. Greenskins have benefited greatly this patch and have lots of lovely changes to talk about. Savage Orc, Boar Boys, and all their associated biggins have received some melee defense buffs, which should increase their staying power in combat. Pump Wagons were severely underperforming, so they've received a bit of a redesign to help them stand out a bit from other war machines on the roster. Now sporting 12 entities per unit on Ultra unit size instead of 4, they should be even more chaotic than before. Finally, we're giving Ragnarok Spiders a bit more leadership and buff their damage slightly, as they were also underperforming. General updates. Grimgor Ironhide is once again, at last, not a big green boy. Okay, so I was going to say, like, I haven't focused a ton on him, but whenever I've seen him, he did look a lot better. So hopefully that will, hopefully he's a proper Black Orc now. With no rest for the wicked, Grimgor Ironhide's short victory conditions now include the Chaos Dwarfs, as they should. Rock Lobbers now have a projectile trail, re-added unique garrisons for Skarsnik and Warzak's main settlements. Cool. And garrison trains. Okay, cool. Ragnarok Spiders now have 10 more leadership, 10 more damage, 30 more armor-piercing damage, and 6 more bonus versus large. Very, very cool. Azhag the Slaughterer now has more health, and he has all of his items back when mounted. Good, good. They also need to fix his mount. His Wyvern mount Skullmuncha is supposed to have a helmet on, and I don't think Azhag has that right now, so hopefully they fix that sometime soon. The Swamp Things, so they have more melee attack, less base damage, but more armor piercing damage. That's solid. Feral Wyvern has considerably more health, more leadership, and more damage, building damage multiplier. Okay, very cool. I still want them to add the ability to recruit Feral Wyverns in campaign through a special building in Red Eye Mountain. And they also need to change it to where it's actually Red Eye Mountain again. It's still Carrick Ungor in Warhammer 3, which is dumb. Like, we've had to do this every game. Warhammer 1, it was Carrick Ungor until we complained enough, and then they were like, oh, our bad, and they changed it to be Red Eye Mountain. And then in Warhammer 2, they changed it back to being Carrick Ungor, and we had to complain a whole bunch again, and they were like, oh, sorry, our bad, and made it Red Eye Mountain. And now it's back to being Carrick Ungor. Good grief. All right. So the Goblin Great Shaman on a Ragnarok Spider we see got more buffs that are consistent. Grom the Paunch is even fatter than he used to be. Delightful. All the Goblin Rider Archers now have a 360 firing arc instead of only 60 degree, which is very, very solid. Goblin Wolf Chariots and the Regiment of Renown now have Firewall moving. Okay, so that's really, really nice. So good. Though they note that the Regiment of Renown actually does not have Firewall moving, but this will be added in patch 3.1. Okay, duly noted. Back to 360 line of sight, significantly heavier mass, almost twice as much actually, and they got some adjustments to their various speeds. Lava Ragnarok, just like the other ones we talked about, got some various stat buffs. Loogie Boogie Spore Splodas got, there's 12 more of them, they have more health. Their stats have been adjusted though to compensate for the fact that there is now 8 more guys in the unit. Orc Boar Boy entities now have considerably higher mass, which is great. Wyverns now have 1,000 extra health, nice, and better building damage. Orc Boar Chariots, slightly better melee attack and arm piercing damage, and also a little bit heavier. Savage Orcs across the board gotten quite a bit of extra melee defense. Regular Savage Orcs going up to 30 melee attack and 20 melee defense. Savage Orc Error Boys going up to 10 melee defense. Savage Orc Biggins going up to 25 melee defense. Savage Orc Boar Boys going up an additional 4 melee defense and also higher mass. Same thing for the Savage Orc Boar Boy Biggins, though with 6 higher melee defense. Snotling Pump Wagons, we see that they have considerably more hit points. I think this is supposed to be 1400, not 400, but there's now 12 per unit. Their stats have been altered to adjust for that. I think it's, I'm not sure what they mean by additional hit points. Maybe it's like additional hit points per model is now only 400 instead of 1150, but that's, I don't know, that's a weird thing to put there. Snotling Pump Wagons with Flappas, kind of the same thing. Like their stats have been reduced a bit overall, but now there's significantly more of them, so they have more health. Snotling Pump Wagon Spiky Rollas, same thing. Stone Trolls, 1 less base damage, 1 higher, and 1 less armor piercing damage, so just a little less damage overall. Fixed Wurzak's Colossal War Paint skill, so it no longer applies physical resistance to rogue idols twice. And they fixed that. Okay, High Elves. A few corrections changed for High Elves this time around, but overall they're performing quite well. Lothern, Seaguard, and Chariots mounts have received a cost correction, with Chariots also benefiting from the mass increases. Warlines have received a chunky buff, and fire resistance of units from Caledoria and Nobility have been reduced slightly. With the coming of the Chaos Dwarfs, we've also removed flaming attacks from Dragon melee weapons, so they remain competitive against this new race of fire-resistant units. The Breath attack, however, is still considered fire. Makes sense. Textures on the Arcane Phoenix have been buffed a bit. Lithnar's faction now has access to Lelea's Blessing stance rather than Raiding stance. Malhindir's left leg is now skinned correctly. Okay. Fixed issues with the dragon encounters not triggering after completing the 5 named dragon encounters. Okay. Fixed an exploit where Eltharion could capture prisoners from reinforcing armies when in a lightning strike battle. Fixed Lithnar's March for Death mission markers revealing enemies that were in ambush stance. Okay. All solid sounding fixes. Updating corrected the connections of the gatehouses to the capture points. All right. Reworked the quest battle intro scene for Tyrion's Armor of Anarion. Alistar, the White Lion, now has much higher mass on his chariot. Same for the Archmage. They're also cheaper. Dragon Princes and regiments of renowned Dragon Princes now only have 25% fire resist instead of 40. Same with Emmerich. Ithilmill Chariots are cheaper in all ways, but have higher mass. Lothern Seaguard are a bit more expensive, as are the shielded variant. Lion Chariots are a bit cheaper in all variants and significantly heavier. Great. Okay, more chariot fixes. Rahagra's Pride now has 5 higher melee attack, 10% higher missile resistance, and significantly higher mass. We see that's also the same for the Warlines of Krace. Higher melee attack, higher missile resistance, and higher mass. All of the different dragons no longer have fire melee attacks, but they do still breathe fire, and Tyrannok Chariots are heavier. Great. Fixed an issue where the High Elf inhibited trait had green text instead of red, implying that it was a positive trait when it's a negative one. Cool. Khorne. God, there's so many freaking fixes to go over. Khorne has received only minor changes this time around, though we'll be watching these closely since they target some of Khorne's key units. Fleshhounds and Minotaurs have been overperforming, so they've been rebalanced. Bloodletters and Forsaken have received a small buff, while Chosen have been made slightly cheaper to make them more accessible options. All right. Fixed a visual update with the Exalted Bloodthirster. Cool. Campaign. Scarbrand will now make up his mind much faster when moving to engage an enemy unit in melee. I don't know what that means, but all right. I guess AI Scarbrand was having problems committing. Demon units. Blood Crushers now have 5 additional leadership. Bloodletters have 5 additional leadership, 5 more armor. Exalted Bloodthirsters cheaper. Exalted Bloodletters have higher leadership. Fleshhounds have that is some reductions. 2 less melee attack, 5 less base damage, and 2 less armor piercing damage. So 7 less damage overall. Scarbrand is now cheaper in multiplayer. Mortal units chosen are cheaper in all formats. Chaos Knights of Khorne have slightly more leadership, also slightly more damage, probably to make them a more competitive option against the Fleshhounds. So they've gotten 5 additional, 5, 7. Yeah, so they pretty much got the damage that the Fleshhounds lost. Same thing for the Chaos Knights for Lances, though they got, pretty much the same. Exalted Hero of Khorne is now cheaper. Forsaken now have 100 armor instead of 85. Wow, those are some tanky boys. Minotaurs of Khorne have lost 2 melee attack. They've lost 3 melee defense, and they lost 10 charge bonus. Significant reduction in charge bonus. Then the Great Weapon variant, same changes, but they also lost 3 bonus versus large. Cool. Kislev. Kislev hasn't been doing great in battle recently, so these changes act as a first step towards improving things. Armored Kossars and Zalgard have received some melee buffs to boost their frontline staying power, while all Kislev cavalry units get a mass boost to match some of their contemporaries from other races. Ice Guard have also gained some additional missile penetration. General updates. Reduce the number of factions at war with and holding diplomatic negatives towards Kostaltin. Okay, making Kostaltin a little bit less of a hated asshole. Katerin now maintains both the magical attacks and frostbite contact effects when on her Warbear mount. Good, that's very important. Boris' start position has been moved when in a multiplayer campaign in Immortal Empires with Astrogoth and Boris both being played. Makes sense, so they're not starting on top of each other. Battles. Oath Brothers of Tor now correctly have the Buy Our Blood passive. Good, that's an important ability. Fix an issue where AI-controlled little ground units do not behave as intended, leaving them attacking the wrong target and not attacking at all. And Winds of Magic will no longer be capped at 20 for the Ice Court's final battle. Gotcha. Units. Armored Kossars now have 4 additional melee attack and 2 additional melee defense, putting them at 40. That's pretty impressive. Armored Kossars with great weapons have 2 higher melee defense. They lost 1 point of base damage, but gained 1 point of armor-piercing damage. So they're just a little bit more effective at cutting through armor. Daz's Hearth Blades have now 50 melee attack instead of 45. They also gained 4 base damage and 2 armor-piercing damage. Very, very nice. The Griffin Legion has gained a 5th additional mass, which is solid. Heavy War Sleds got a considerable buff to mass. Horse Archers are cheaper in all forms, also have 2 higher melee defense, 10 higher armor. Very good, putting them at 25. Not a massive difference, but it will matter. It definitely will matter. And they also are cheaper in multiplayer. The Ice Guards, despite having a magical missile weapon, the penetration of the projectile was relatively low. Therefore, we've raised the value so the projectile will penetrate and deal damage to more targets per volley. Interesting. I'm very curious to see how Ice Guard are performing, because Ice Guard, like when you compare Ice Guard to kind of their equivalents being like the Chaos Dwarf Fireglaves and the Sisters of Avalorn, the Ice Guard felt like they were very much underperforming. So hopefully this will help them be more on par. Classified Dervishes also got 10 additional armor. Light War Sleds are a little heavier. Little Grom got a fair bit heavier. Streltsy. Enemy size for allowing splash attacks has changed from medium to small. Interesting. Max entities hit by splash attacks is now 2, or was 2, is down to 1. Splash attack knockback force multiplier is up to 1, and building damage multiplier is down a little bit. So it seems like the Streltsy are going to be having less splash attack damage, but they are much more likely to like send people sprawling when they hit them with their axes. Katerin now has magical attacks on her bear. Zargard got 2 more melee attack, 4 more base damage, and 2 more armor piercing damage. Great weapon variant got 4 more melee attack, 4 more base damage, and 2 more armor piercing. Great. And then the horses got heavier. Skills. Adamants will no longer siphon experience from other characters when leading a garrison to army with the maxed out mentor skill. Oh, that's really cool. Oh, I never even thought about, yeah, I guess Adamants would benefit in a lot of really cool ways from the mentor skill. I like Adamants, but I do wish they could be like a bit more useful. Like I kind of wish they increased like the reinforcement. What if that would be kind of a cool concept if they could like increase the reinforcement range of garrisons as they like lead their armies out. That way they could just, you know, be more involved. Anywho, Lizardmen. Lots of cost changes for Lizardmen, with most of their big dinos getting a slight discount. We've also buffed Crocodors a bit, so they're a lot sturdier in combat. Ancient Salamanders have also received crewman time reduction along with other buffs, which should help it thrive in combat campaign. The Spirit of Tepok Quaddle has also had its bounce spell switched out to make it a more viable pick. General updates. Fixed Skink Chief Tent's mask colors. Okay. Fixed issues with Lizardmen post-battle options when fighting against Chaos Racens. They will now match what was given in Warhammer 2. Minor faction, the Wardens of the Living Pools can now sustain their armies. Fixed texture and model issues for Slann. It's now only has 1 primary building chain for the Lizardmen as intended. Let's see. Fixed an issue where Zinch unit would appear in an allied army when playing a Lizardmen quest battle. Hilarious. Units. Dinosaurs are cheaper. Bastillodons have more ammunition. Awesome. The Blessed Saurus Spears now have the Woodsman trait. Okay, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So they're better at fighting in the forest. Chameleon Stalkers are cheaper. Quaddle's cheaper. The cohort of Quaddle now has a bit more health. 7 more melee defense. Perfect vigor. They lost their 50% physical resist, but gained 50% missile resist. I think that is a fantastic set of changes. I would much rather have the higher melee defense, the missile resistance, and the perfect vigor. That is really, really solid. Lots more price reductions on all the big stompy dinosaurs. Oh, Croc-Gark got a little cost reduction. Yeah, all sorts of cheaper dinosaurs. So many cheaper dinosaurs. You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. Croxagors have 4 higher melee attack, 6 higher melee defense, 5 higher base damage, but -5 bonus versus infantry. I really like this change. It makes them a little less specialized and a little more generalist, especially the higher melee defense. That is huge for allowing the Croxagors to be more of like body blockers and work much more effectively with the skinks. I will say that now that we've seen the ability, or like we've really seen CA showing what they can do using the Chaos Dwarf Contempt system, and the Hobgoblin system to get leadership from nearby units with Contempt, I would really, really, really like to see Croxagors and Skinks get a Spawnkin special rule system where Croxagors and Skinks buff each other. I think that would be very, very good to see. Plus, Croxagors got very similar stat buffs. Awesome. Good to see. Sacred Croxagor, also +6 melee defense, also significantly more health. Ancient Salamander only takes 1 turn to recruit. Thank you, God. That was so dumb that thing took 2 turns. It did not need to take 2 turns. That was ridiculous. That's a much better change. Also got 1,000 more health, and the launch velocity for its shooting attack is considerably higher. Good. Salamanders now have a higher effective range, and their projectiles have a higher launch velocity, which is all wonderful. The Spirit of Tepok is actually a fair bit cheaper in multiplayer. No longer has Shield of Thorns and lesser banishment, but instead has Earthblood and Bjorn's Time Warp, which is extremely strong. Those are very, very, very strong spells. Bjorn's Time Warp is incredible on Lizardmen. I think there are a few races that put Bjorn's Time Warp to work as well as the Lizardmen do. Dreadsaurian now has higher knockback force multiplier. Cool. Norska have received a few targeted buffs to some of their underperforming units. Mammoths are cheaper. Famir get their Scaly Skin bonus from tabletop, and Marauder champions with great weapons have been ironed out a bit. Ice Wolf chariots have also received a considerable buff to their missile weapon. All right. Kilgore Slaymane no longer has an arcane slot. Cool. Yeah, Corn Boys probably should not have arcane items. Marauder Chieftain mount. Wow, that is a lot cheaper. 300 cheaper to recruit, and 300 cheaper in multiplayer. Also, notably less upkeep costs. Same for all the other mammoths, where they are a lot cheaper in various ways. Good. The Fimmer Balefiends now have 10% higher missile damage resistance. Very, very nice. Kihar the Tormentor no longer has flaming attacks, which makes sense. He only had those because he was on a dragon, but they've been getting rid of that. Marauder champions are a little debuffed overall. Less melee attack damage and armor piercing damage, just to make them a little less good. However, Marauder champions with great weapons coming in with a big old fat +8 to their melee defense. My lord. So they are way better at defending themselves. Marauder champions, or Marauder Ice Wolf chariots, more armor, twice as much base damage, almost twice as much armor piercing damage, and almost twice as much mass. Very, very solid buffs for the Ice Wolf chariots. Famir warriors lost a little bit of melee attack, but they got more base damage, little less armor piercing damage, but they got 25% additional base missile resist, which is very, very solid. When you combine that with their From the Mist ability, they are going to be far better at dealing with shooting. I like this. This is going to make them kind of more on par with the Bull Centaurs, who have a significant amount of missile resist. Famir warriors with great weapons have 2 higher melee attack. They have sacrificed a fair bit of melee defense, but they gained a little bit of charge bonus, a little less bonus versus large, but they did gain all of that lovely missile resistance. Same thing with the Miststalkers, keeping things consistent. The Frostworm now has 10 more leadership and also deals a fair bit more base and armor piercing damage. Cold Voider, same thing. Nurgle. Nurgle just needs a flat out kind of rework for his tech tree. His tech tree is so bad. Like, as much as I love what they were trying to go for with the Nurgle tech tree, they pigeonholed it so hard for Realm of Chaos, and it's just bad in Immortal Empires. Like, you have to kind of like be very careful with the techs you select, because a lot of them just have 0 impact on the campaign until you go significantly further out from where he starts. Let's see. We've made some changes to various units. Also, the -5 speed reduction from Mark of Nurgle has been removed. Cool. Nurgle's Unholy Manifestation, Pestilent Growth, now gives further replenishment when Nurgle is Ascendant. Nurgle's provincial enemy lord Tepak spawn will no longer start on a Carnosaur because that's just cheating. Good. Kugoth already has it hard enough with frickin' Gorse there. He didn't also need to throw down with a Carnosaur like every day. Let's see. Demonic units. Barons of the Bog. They are more expensive, but they have 5 higher leadership. They lost quite a bit of base damage. They lost 11 base damage, but gained it back as 11 armor piercing, which is always a great trade. They are also now notably faster at running and accelerating. They have higher mass, and they're a little more expensive. Rotflies now have higher mass. Nurglings. Max entities hit by a splash attack has been reduced from 3 to 1, so splash damage... assuming I'm reading this right, I don't know if that's how many of them can be hit by a splash attack or how many enemies they hit with a splash attack. I'm not quite sure what that's trying to say. Because if it's they are less likely to be damaged by splash attacks, that's a buff for them. But if it's they're less likely to splash attack enemies, that is a debuff. But no, I'm pretty sure. So this is they will splash attack less enemies. However, their knockback force multiplier is much higher. So they're much better at knocking people around and knocking them over, but they hit less people overall. And this kind of goes in with the changes where being knocked over no longer makes you like immune to damage anymore. So being knocked over is much more dangerous, which it should be. Rotflies are heavier. Plague drones now have 12 entities per model instead of 10, which is a significant buff for them. They also have a little bit more health, 3 higher melee attack, 10 higher armor piercing damage, and are considerably heavier. So just flat out buffs, just all the buffs. Same thing for the Death Heads. Pox Riders of Nurgle are a little bit more expensive, but have higher leadership, significantly more armor piercing damage. They're also considerably faster and heavier. Plague Bearers have higher armor and leadership, giving them more staying power. Plague Toads of Nurgle, very consistent with the buffs we talked about earlier. Minus 11, plus 11. Very solid overall, heavier, but more expensive. Rotflies also got 2 more entities, same thing, but just flat buffs overall. 5 more armor piercing damage, 3 more melee attack, a little bit more health and higher mass, which is great. Mortal units. All mortals no longer have -5 speed trait, which is great. The minus speed was dumb. That was a very unnecessary debuff, so I'm glad they got rid of that. We do see all the characters now have significantly higher speeds. Looks like the Chosen of Nurgle are actually a fair bit cheaper in all formats, which is good. Chosen Nurgle with great weapons are cheaper as well. Chaos Chariots, Chaos Knights now have higher damage, 5 more base damage, 2 more armor piercing damage, plus 1 leadership, which is solid. Same thing for Lances. The Exalted Heroes a bit more expensive. Okay. Ogre Kingdoms. Oh, Ogre Kingdoms. Ogres haven't been doing too great in battle as of late, so some work is needed to bring them up to scratch. Greasus has had a few token buffs, although we still recognize he will likely have to go further. Ogre Pistols and Cavalry received some attention to give them a bit more impact across the board. Artillery received a maneuverability nerf in exchange for mass buff to emphasize their role a bit better. I will say, though, having co-hosted the tournament earlier today, Ogres seem like they are kicking ass in battles. Like, Ogre Kingdom seem like they are genuinely a very, very strong army now, at least in the multiplayer setting. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that kind of works. Fix them, the little bug things, fixed missions that require you to kill a big character. Crushers. So Crushers with Iron Fists have 5 higher base damage, 9 more armor piercing damage. Crushers with great weapons have 5 more, same thing. Greasus Goldtooth is now accelerates faster, decelerates faster, and has twice as fast turn speed. Whoo, he's spinning the wheels. Greasus he broke out the WD-40. His wheels are turning. I will say, I think Greasus is going to need some significant alterations to like the way he attacks and how his attacks are handled by the game, as far as like how many people he hits and how successful he is at connecting, because he's supposed to be a pretty devastating duelist, and he's just not right now. I also really hope they make his actual model bigger, like make him a little larger. I know that would expose him to more shooting and swarm play, but I don't know. I feel like it would be worth it for him to kind of take more presence on the battlefield and really come off like a big fat ogre. But anyway, Noblar Scrap Launcher is significantly slower, but has almost twice as much freaking mass. So this sucker is going to be pushing through people who are running them over. Iron Guts, 2 higher melee defense, 10 higher armor, putting them at 100, and now they have +5 bonus versus infantry. Very solid. Gives them like a kind of a more consistent battlefield role. That's really good. I like that. Iron Blasters are cheaper, also less maneuverable, but considerably higher mass. Great. Man-Eaters with Ogre Pistols now have more ammunition, better calibration distance, and better calibration area for their shooting attacks. Mornfang Cavalry are cheaper in all forms, and the Powder Guts got the same changes we talked about earlier. And the Sky Striders now have magic attacks, which is fantastic. That's really, really good. Magic attacks are never a bad thing. Skaven, these changes don't exist, but if they did, they go something like this. Poison Wind Globadiers and Mortars have had their AP ratio flattened out a bit, while Doom Wheels, Plague Monks, and Scissor Bears have received some buffs to make them more viable. God, I hope that's true. General updates. Rat Ogres now get +5 leadership through the Practice Goaders technology. That's cool. Fix an issue with Skaven Banner Glow. The Unclean Energy Bar upgrade is now usable within Throt's Flesh Laboratory. That's good. It needs to be usable. Fixed number of cases where effects are being applied to Skaven weapon teams twice. Okay. The destroyed version of the Plague Furnace now uses the Plague Furnace model instead of incorrectly using the Warp Lightning Cannon model. That is kind of hilarious, though a good fix. Fix an issue where one of Throth the Unclean's weapons docked incorrectly in mustering stance. Skaven Neuroparasites now correctly trigger audio. Oh, I didn't realize that. Curious. Fixed an issue where projectiles could be launched through the cliff face on the Altar of the Horned Rat. Fixed the quest battle intro scene for Deathmaster Snitch's Rise of Darkness. Cool. Campaign. Skaven now have access to their Brightstone Mine landmark in Mount Gunbad. Very good. Multiple battles. If multiple buildings are required to recruit a hero, they are now all shown in the requirement tooltip. Fixed a crash on Hell Pit. Fixed Cloak of Shadows quest battle. Blight Scab's Plague Pack has less numbers overall, or is cheaper everywhere, but has 2 higher melee defense. The Doom Wheel has a little bit more health, 2 higher melee attack, 5 more melee defense, 8 more base damage, and oh my gosh, 19 more armor piercing damage. Okay, all right, so that's gonna hit considerably harder. Poison Wind Mortars have had their armor piercing damage reduced a little bit, but their base damage is up, so they're a little bit less, the slightest bit less good against heavily armored units. Plague Monk Sensor Bearers have 2 higher melee defense and are cheaper overall. Plague Monks are cheaper overall. Avalanche Mortars actually got a significant damage debuff. So they got +4 regular damage, but -16 armor piercing damage. That is, wow, okay, that is a notable debuff on the armor piercing damage there. Wheels of Doom, same as above. And Warpfire's Wheel, same as above. Let's see, fix some placeholder stuff. The Flensing Ruin spell now correctly displays its ability icon skill trees, as does the Dreaded 13th. Neat. Slaanesh. Slaanesh has been performing really well for a while thanks to a few Cornerstone units. Devoted Marauders and Hellstriders have been calmed somewhat, while Demonettes and the Keeper of Secrets have been buffed. Perhaps the biggest challenge in the Slaanesh roster, however, is the reduction of the physical resistance bonus on all units with the Mark of Slaanesh from 10% down to 5%. This should make the mortal front line less oppressive. Good. Devoted Marauders are now considerably more expensive, as they should be. Screw them. They also no longer have bonus versus infantry, and they also lost 5% physical resist. Haha, get fucked. Good. Good riddance, I say. Demonettes of Slaanesh now have 10 armor instead of 5 and 65 leadership instead of 60. Solid. Demon Prince of Slaanesh got a little bit less damage resistance. The Exalted Keeper of Secrets is cheaper in all forms and also got 10 more armor. Fiends of Slaanesh can now hide in forests, as can Hellflayers. Very nice. Hellstriders have -10 bonus versus large and -4 melee attack, which is a pretty serious reduction in their damage capabilities. Good, screw them. Same thing, or actually the Hellstriders of Slaanesh with Hell Scourges, we can see now have -4 melee attack and -2 melee defense, once again making them a little less consistently. It's insane, which is solid. Keeper of Secrets got +5 leadership and +10 armor. Solid. Good. Same thing for Nakari. Seeker Chariots can now hide in forests. The Marquis of Masochism, same buffs we already talked about. Spawn of Slaanesh, yeah. All the mortals, yada yada. Hell Scourges. Hell Scourges are back to giving poison. So they have poison contact effect as their gimmick. And they got less melee attack and less they actually got 1 point of extra damage, but they are of course less tanky. Same thing for the Chosen, a little bit less melee attack, but they have a little bit better armor piercing damage, and of course they now apply poison. But I think that's a really good change for them. Hail Scourges applying poison, I think makes perfectly fine sense. Like, that's great. Awesome. Cool. Let's see. Chaos Knights of Slaanesh got damage buffs just like all the other knights we've been looking at, along with a little bit of leadership buff, which is solid. Devoted Martyrs of Slaanesh with spears got slightly higher melee defense, bumping them up to 32 instead of 28, but they lost a little bit of melee attack. And they're still pretty fast. So Devoted Marauders with spears seem like they're still pretty good. Devoted Marauders with Hail Scourges are now more expensive in all forms, but they have a little less melee attack, though they do gain a little bit of base weapon damage to make up for their lowering attack and physical resist. And then all these other guys got minus 5% physical resistance, and regular Marauders of Slaanesh, we can see with the Hail Scourges, got the poison, minus 2 melee attack, plus 3 damage. The Empire. Dev note, Demigryph Knights have been the focus of the Empire's changes this patch. Our metrics show they were underperforming. The community scored per peer-reviewed suggestions. Agreed. Good catch, friends. Buffs were therefore in order. Plus, the Luminarch has received a considerable buff with its reload time now halved. Oh my. Also note that the War Wagon ammunition has been slightly tweaked. War Wagons have 6 gunners, and the unit info panel divides the ammo by 6 to represent a single volley. The raw ammo number is also now displayed for all of you budding gunnery students out there. Fix some bug problems. Pigbarter now acts as a bridge. Campaign. The Cult of Sigmar now correctly confederates the Empire. Volkmar's Book of Nagash rewards listing has been fixed. The gunnery school now correctly allows recruitment options. Karl Franz's quest battle for the Beast Slayer is now winnable. Let's see. Pegasus has received like the general Pegasus buffs. Bright Wizards now have flaming attacks. Very cool. Demigryphs have 5 higher leadership, 2 higher melee attack, 1 higher base damage, 1 higher armor piercing damage, and considerably better knockback force. Considerably. 0.2 to 1.6. That is a big boy upgrade on splash attack knockback force. Halberds, plus 5 leadership, plus 2 melee attack, plus 1 to all forms of damage, and significantly higher splash attack knockback. Great. Hellblaster volley guns are cheaper. Pegasus, we talked about, got all their changes. Luminarch of Hysh, yep, the reload time is cut exactly in half. It's a little bit less fast and good at turning on the spot, but it's also heavier to make up for it. Black Lions now have more ammunition, heavier mass, and they are faster and have charge faster. Actually, pretty solid increase in run speed and charge speed. Very nice. Altdorf Griffites, Royal Altdorf Griffites, same thing we talked about earlier, plus 1 to all forms of damage, plus 2 melee attack, plus 5 leadership. Very cool. Volkmar the Grim, almost twice as much mass, so he's going to be much better at running people over and maneuvering. Also, higher run speed, and higher charge speed. However, his ability to turn and accelerate has been reduced somewhat. War Wagons now have had their ammunition adjusted from 40 to 35. So they have 35 volleys with all 6 gunners instead of 40, but they got higher entity mass, so they're better at running people over and escaping as the adjust. War Wagons with mortars are now faster when running and charging, and also are heavier. The Witch Hunter is now notably cheaper and got plus 15 armor. Nice. Okay, so he's actually a fair bit better. And the State Troop Standards buff now properly provides buffs. Very cool. We are an hour in and still not done. Good God. Tomb Kings. There aren't many changes for Tomb Kings, except for the chariots, which should help considerably. Chariot of the Gods, considerably more mass. Regular chariots, a little bit more mass. Regular chariots are now more expensive, but have considerably more health. Wow, over 1,000 additional health on regular skeleton chariots and skeleton chariot archers. Very cool. So they're a lot more durable, but they're a little bit more expensive to make up for it. Also, skeleton archer chariots can fire while moving. Very cool. I could have sworn they already did, but maybe I'm crazy. But now they can, if they couldn't before. The Kepler Guard are a bit more expensive. The Bone Giant has 3 more melee defense. And yeah, cool, whatever. Tzeentch. Tzeentch is another faction that's doing relatively okay across both land battle and domination. There's a few targeted changes here with Disc receiving more mass, Flamers receiving more projectile velocity, and Chosen being a bit cheaper. Kairos, okay, they did some voice changes a little bit with him. Discs of Tzeentch now have 1,300 mass instead of 500. So almost triple their original mass. Very nice. That should make them much better at pushing out of combat and also having more devastating charges. Burning Chariot of Tzeentch mounts are also heavier. Pink Horrors of Tzeentch got 10 more armor, 5 more leadership. Flamers of Tzeentch of all kinds now have 15 higher projectile velocity, so those flames are going to be getting into your face much quicker. The Burning Chariot also got the mass increase. Mortal units, we see that the Chosen across the board are considerably cheaper. And Chaos Knights also got the buffs we've been seeing on all the Chaos Knights of the +1 leadership, +5 base damage, +2 armor piercing. Doom Knights now have slightly higher mass, and then as do the Knights of Immolation. Vampire Coast. Vampire Coast have been doing fairly well, so the changes are focused only on some of their overperforming units. Gunnery Mob now have a standard 90 range for handgun. Animated Hulks now have received a considerable change, and Solostra's Knight's Errant Summon no longer uses Lance Formation. Mongols have received a bit of a buff across the board, though, with some additional attributes to improve their utility. Cool. Vampire Pirate ship growth no longer shows its tech in the tooltip. Makes sense. Solostra Diarfan is more expensive. Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob no longer have 120 range instead of 90, making them standard. Good, because 120 was stupid on them. If there's anything zombie pirates should not be better at, it's sniping. They're dead. They're dead wet dudes. They should not be good at sniping. Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob with bombers, less base damage, or just less damage overall. Okay, I do think they overperformed a bit, so that makes sense. Deck Droppers now attack slightly faster with their melee attacks to make them a little bit better in close combat. Deck Droppers with bombers, less damage, but better at combat. Deck Droppers with handguns. Okay, all the Deck Droppers have higher melee attack. The Morngul Haunters now... Oh, interesting. Okay, these are some nice changes. So all Mornguls now have Strider, which makes sense. They're supposed to be ethereal units, so them having Strider makes absolute sense. They're ghosts. Why would they give like two shits about about the terrain? They also have Hide in Forests, which makes them even more sneaky. Even when you're close enough to potentially spot them, if they're hiding in the forest, it makes it easier for them to hide. The Morgul Haunters also a bit cheaper, actually a fair bit cheaper multiplayer. And the Night Terrors no longer have Rampage. That is very nice. Animated Hulks have 4 less melee attack, 5 less armor, 5 less base damage, and 15 less armor piercing. Wow, Animated Hulks got big boy debuffed. I did not realize they were performing so well. Good for them until now, I guess. Damn Knights Errants no longer have the Lance Formation. Makes sense, they're no longer part of the ladies' grand kingdoms. Let's see. Switch the Vampire Coast technology icons for Dread Admiral and Disreputable Admiral to match the type of Vampire Lord unlocked. Cool. Vampire Counts. Vampire Counts have been overperforming across the board. These tweaks mainly target healing abilities and Crypt Horrors as their combination of regeneration high HP pool made for a truly formidable unit. Graveguard and Blackguard also have had their magic attacks removed. Really? That's super interesting. Okay. I guess that's just to make them... That's interesting. Because, like, the whole, like, White Blades thing is kind of a major part of their tabletop component. Meaning the Vampire Counts will need to rely more on AoE abilities in order to deal with physical resistance. But, I mean, I do think it's not a bad thing, though. Because it is it is kind of adding in, like, making them less good at everything. Fixed an issue where Manfred's Book of Nagash wouldn't upgrade until the following turn if you unlock them while the Malevolent Museum is already built. Added a growth building to Gore's starting landmark. Cool. Let's see. Graveguard of all kinds. Yeah, lost magic attacks, as is the Black Knights. Crypt Horrors now have a bit less health and 5 less melee defense. Makes sense. And we already talked about that a lot of their natural healing abilities are nerfed. That being said, you can also get your magic attacks back by having a Mortis Engine, which just makes Mortis Engines more valuable. I will say, Creative Assembly, still waiting on my fucking Strider for all the Black Knights. Black Knights had Strider in tabletop because they ride skeletal steeds. Skeletal steeds turn ethereal on the charge. So they had Strider. It was a really like cool, unique part of their hell kit, and it's what separates hell steeds from skeletal steeds. Please fix. Please fix. Maybe in patch 3.1. Warriors of Chaos. Not too many changes for the Warriors of Chaos undivided units in this update, although changes to mortal units to other monogod rosters also apply to them. Main change here is that the base stats of the Chaos Knights have been improved as they were underperforming slightly. Dragon Ogres and Shagged Souls have received buffs. Yeah, can we get our Dragon Ogre variants though? Like, please, like, freaking... if every single other like race or faction has all these cool, like, oh, we've got like different versions of, like, we've got a great weapon variant and a halberd variant and a sword and board variant, whatever. Like, where's my variants for my dragon ogres? We only have the great weapon dragon ogre. There's also supposed to be a halberd dragon ogre, and there's supposed to be a dual hand weapon, two weapon dragon ogre. So please. Let's see. Warriors of Chaos beast building now increases Forsaken unit capacity. Neat. Prevented Warriors of Chaos AI from trying to recruit units in the same region for several successive turns. Okay, makes sense. Fix some other random bug things I don't care about. Added an additional war between Kolek Thunder and the Tusked Sons. Okay, giving Kolek some people to hate at the beginning. Also make it probably a little easier for the Chaos Dwarfs to buddy up with them. No fire attacks on the dragons. Chaos Knights got the same buffs we've seen on all the different Chaos Knights. Their weapon reach is longer on lances. Neat. Swords of Chaos got... all the Swords of Chaos got was +1 leadership. Sibilant Slaughtercade got their physical resistance down a bit, and Demon Spew got rid of their speed debuff. Dragon Ogres are cheaper across the board. Dragon Ogre Shaggoth now has 20 higher damage, base damage, 30 higher armor piercing damage, is better, has higher splash attack knockback. Very, very solid, very solid. Wood Elves. The big changes of Wood Elves this time around revolve around Treemen, who are currently underperforming. Treemen have received a buff to their weapon strength, HP, and knockback multiplier, which means that they should be a bit more effective in prolonged fights and clear enemies out a bit better. Wild Riders have also received a mass buff, along with some change to Hawk Riders, which should make them a bit less paper-thin melee. Neat. Let's see. The Thrillic Trees return to Val's Anvil. Glade Captain Hero can do passive abilities for boosting local income. Let's see. Fixed an issue where Glade Guard buffs were not being applied properly to fire and poison variants. Neat. Durthu does 10 less base damage, but 30 more armor piercing damage. He's also much better with splash attack knockback, and his building damage multiplier is now higher. Coadil, -20 base damage, but higher splash attack knockback force multiplier. Ancient Treemen and Malevolent Treemen can now... Oh, cool. So their splash attacks are now able to hit large targets, instead of only medium and below. So they can hit like everybody with splash. Very nice. Also, their splash attack knockback force multiplier is higher. Treemen and Malevolent Treemen got 500 more health, -20 base damage, but plus 40 armor piercing, and also much better splash attack force multiplier. Unicorns got altered to be more consistent. And what they're supposed to be. Stags got plus 200 mass. Great Stag Knights got another 5% missile resistance, which is lovely. Loix Tricksters are cheaper overall. Wild Riders now have 200 higher mass. Hawk Riders are more expensive across the board, but got 5 additional melee attack, 6 additional melee defense, and 4 additional charge bonus, and they got the Woodsman attribute, as they should. That's awesome. That is absolutely fantastic. That's really, really great. Great Hawks also got the Woodsman. Great Hawks. Do they mean Great Eagles? Or Great... Oh, no. Great Hawks, I think, are a unit for Drycha. Okay, there we go. Zotes also got plus 10 leadership. Very nice, very nice. Campaign. General fixes. Fix an issue where gold was being awarded to a mission target, such as settlement being attacked or faction, instead of to the mission owner. Oh, that's actually really funny. So you would accomplish a mission, and it would give the gold to the person you were doing the mission to. Huh. Nice. Fix some problems with the prologue. The Realm of Chaos. Reduce the number of wars with the Ice Court at the start of the campaign. Realm of Chaos now is better visibility from save files. Diplomacy. If you had mission-driven Confederation, a small boost has been applied to the Confederated faction, making it less likely to die before the player completes it. Battles. The new Endless Survival Battle mode. These are super fucking fun. I am absolutely going to be hosting some like kind of tournaments for these. Hold out against growing waves of enemies in 25 new endless survival battles. It's a more casual, cooperative battle experience. Each one represents a different race and can be accessed from a custom battle multiplayer. These can be solo or co-op with up to 4 people. Enemies will spawn periodically and attack you, featuring every unit from the chosen race. Each map has 3 capture points, with 1 starting the player point. Each capture point gives you more supplies that can be used on reinforcements, upgrade, and replenishments. Difficulty is scaled on player count and time survived. They cannot be won. I'm very excited to mess around with this, especially perhaps with some friends. We're always looking at how battle maps can be improved. We got a quality assurance sleep of many maps in Warhammer. Track down some of the problems reflecting these play spaces. Below is a comprehensive list on changes made so far. Some deal with graphics and audio, while others tackle collisions that were causing units or the camera to get stuck. Ambush battles. They talk about a lot of specific maps. Fixing terrain problems. Choke point, same thing. Domination, same thing. Free-for-all, same thing. Land battles, same thing. I'm not going to read all these. Settlement battles, same thing. Siege battles, same thing. Subterranean battles, same thing. Survival battles, same thing. Other significant battle changes. Reinforcement, panel, and domination survival, because now it can be repositioned. Very nice, so it just moves around. Teleport withdrawal time is now 10 seconds instead of 3. Makes sense. Reinforcement resummoning time now takes 45 seconds instead of 30. Makes sense. Fixed players gaining an unfair advantage in multiplayer battles by modifying the UI through a movie pack. You cheaty little cheat sheets. Good. So they can no longer cheat that way. Fix riders on war machines from shooting the primary missile unit of the unit when they weren't supposed to. Cool. Multiplayer stuff. Quick battle map rotation changes. The map battle changes have been adjusted. So a number of problematic maps have been removed, and they have been replaced with old fan favorites. The following maps have been removed. The Steps of Aisha, Broken Hill, Step of Aisha, Compass Reach, and Crystal Mountains are gone, and instead have been replaced with Prague, Schwarzhaven, Blasted Lands, Mortis Ways, Southern Chaos Ways, Blue Reach River, Cliff of Beasts, Peak Pass, the Bitter Dunes, Isle of the Crimson Skull, Tower of Hoth, Pillar of Bone, Gorgazan, Shagra Strand, the Stomping Grounds, and the Choking Pits. Very cool. Game. Articulated Vehicle Collision Overhaul. This sounds like something that would be talked about when I take my car in. Articulated Vehicle Cohesion is getting a rework. This affects all units that pivot when turning, such as chariots and war wagons. Previously, the effect collision of articulated vehicle was governed by a small collision volume, the area or block that other blocks can collide with. This meant that when an articulated unit such as a chariot was turning or colliding with enemies, the logical collision was not represented by the actual 3D visuals. The long-time players reading this may remember we attempted to fix this back in Warhammer 2 during the Science of the Fury DLC, temporarily leading to some very overpowered Tuscarora and Razor chariots. To explain the new behavior, it's first important to explain how articulated vehicle collision worked prior to this change and the problems this caused. First off, these vehicles are split into 4 main components. The articulated entity. This is the main controller for all the separate components of the vehicle, tying everything together. It governs the logic for things like collisions, movement, attacks, etc. It has no visual representation. The mount. The animals that pull the vehicle. The engine. The vehicle that is being pulled. And then the rider. An additional entity that is on the engine. Prior to this change, the articulated entity alone was colliding with friendly enemy units. This meant that the collision block had to be relatively large and encompass the entire unit to make the collision fair. The other collision volumes of the mount, engine, and rider were only used for colliding with incoming projectiles. This led to problems when these units were attempting to turn, such as you see in this image. So realistically, the model is only this, right? Here's the engine, here's the rider, here's the mount, or the, yeah. So this is all that it should be. However, all this extra fuck you space was also being counted as the chariot. So it was much more vulnerable to shooting, and it was also having a much harder time dealing with a lot of weird things. Let's see. The large white box in this image is the articulated entity collision area. Because this is the only part of the vehicle that collide with other units, these units experience difficulties when turning when surrounded in melee. So they got stuck. In patch 3.3, what have we done? Now we've made them articulated. To illustrate this, here's the thing. So in the old days, you just had this big fat white box that represented all of you. Now you have this sweet baby where you've got the engine box, the articulated entity, and then the mounts. As you can see, the vehicle is a lot more representative of its visual model when executing a turn. This helps articulated vehicles out when moving through enemy units, but also presents more opportunities for enemies to attack as well, since they are now able to attack all parts of the effective collision instead of attempting to crowd around and hit a single collision block. As part of this change, every articulated vehicle in the game has had its collision articulation properties overhauled in order to fit the mold of the new logic. This is far-reaching in scope, but it solves a long-standing invisible and overall negative element for articulated units. We'll see how this works, and hopefully it goes well. The Lord of Fire. The lore of Fire has been completely overhauled, with every spell in the lore receiving new visual effects and audio treatments. Great. Awesome. And we've showed these off a lot. You've probably seen them. Also, if you get hit with the fire attack, you get a little flash of sparks. And if you get hit with the magic attack, you get a little flash of blue lights to go, hey, look, you're being hit by this. Graphics. Oh, God. Oh, okay. Oh, Lord. Characters no longer vibrate when when clicking on their character flag during movement. Hilarious. I'm just gonna very I'm just looking for anything that really jumps out at me. A lot of texture stuff. Texture detail, and fix the two-way mountain waterfall. Great Break Shamans will now be dismembered properly. Tomb Kings now can ruin settlements. Look better. Scale oversized Lizardman Norska stuff. Blood Dragon's left sword now remains visible. Oh god. Okay, cool. Okay, whatever. Yep. Great. Fixed audio. Yep. Cool. Great. Yep. New missile block icon. Thank God. The icon for missile block has been improved and now uses a single unified icon that better fits the game's overall style. Now it's a little shield with an arrow hitting it to demonstrate that it blocks small arms fire, which is very nice. And it's bronze, silver, or gold. UI. Sticky tooltips have been added to a large number of game elements, most notably the tech tree, skills, building, and unit cards. These new tooltips allow you to inspect their element once they have stuck. Inspectable elements within these tooltips will be denoted with an eye icon. The timings for sticky tooltips appearing, sticking, and hiding can be modified in the options menu. Added enable all and disable all buttons to the campaign notifications menu. Thank God, so you don't have to manually click and re-click all of them. The campaign race list now fills rows first instead of columns. This makes it consistent with other race lists. Fix missing icons during barricade loading screen hint. Fixed a lot of stuff. Fixed issue with C regions. And this is such a big fucking patch, dude. Which is great. Like, obviously, that's wonderful. Cool. Story panels can now be viewed from the movie viewer, which has been renamed to the narrative viewer to better reflect its intended purpose. Added 11 new achievements centered around the Mirrors of Madness DLC that launches with 3.0. Quiet, you never saw those. Okay, so interesting. So there's no Chaos Dwarf achievements, but there are achievements for the Mirrors of Madness. All right, text and translations, don't care. Up next, That's All She Wrote. Compiling this took years off our lives. We thank you for joining us. However, this is just the start of the 3.0 journey. We shall be keeping a close eye on feedback. Confirmed that 3.1 is actually coming up very soon. Because as hard as this believe, we've actually got more stuff to show you. We can't go into details, but expect yet more fixed base wholesomeness with 3.1 in a few weeks. Very cool. Okay, I know on my wish list is getting Azhag's model fixed, getting Strider on Black Knights, and getting Spawnkin on Crocsgores and Skinks. Also, I want immunity to contact effects on Tehinowan's Slaughtermasters and Butchers. And Tehinowan needs to get a campaign ability on his skill tree that lets him make all red-crested Skinks and red-crested Skink Chiefs also gain immune to contact effects. I think that would be very fitting and good. Also, Lord Skrulk should probably have an ability that gives him immunity to contact effects for on his skill tree for himself and all Clan Pestilence units. I think that would make sense. Or maybe that could be in the tech tree for Skaven. Anyway, so that's it. The end. Hope you all enjoyed. This was an hour and a fucking half. So I appreciate you all coming by. I will do my damnedest to have timestamps in on this thing. But it's, it's a lot. So the timestamps might take a hot minute. In any event, I hope you all are doing well out there. And by the time you see this, we are either live on 3.0 or about to go live on 3.0. So please enjoy all of the new changes, all of the fixes. And make sure that you're letting me know down in the comments or on Twitter or on the Discord, and letting the Total War devs know any problems that you may encounter, any ideas you have, any fixes you'd like to see, so that we can continue making this the best game it possibly can be. Thank you all again so much for watching. I know the wait has been long, but in my opinion, it's been well worth it, and I hope you'll feel the same. And that's all I got. I'll talk to you laters. Bye-bye. Oh my God, where's the top? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, there it is. Okay, bye.